Wow, I have been gone for like a month. I'm so sorry. Hello my little doodleborbs, I'm signing in as Sal and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new to my little sketchbook, leave some doodles behind to unwind. This is going to be a bit different from my usual content, more so just a rant more than anything that was sparked by the most recent episode of Helluva Boss. I hope it's the most recent one as when I'm putting this out. A show made by Vivian Medrano and is streaming free on YouTube. This video isn't focused specifically on the Helluva series enough to lengthen my script by talking about the details and history of Vivian Medrano, so I'm not going to get into that, nor any of the controversies aside from the one about the deaf child character being written into MAMMON'S magnificent musical mid-season special. This video is talking about representation in media, and the idea just started from hearing about the drama from a video Mallory made, so I'll be sure to link that below. Now, keep this in mind, my little doodleborbs. I'm just a small idiot creator here who's just sharing opinions because I feel like ranting, and I know the likelihood of people caring about the opinions of this little idiot is slim to none. If you agree, cool. If not, cool. This isn't really me trying to be revolutionary here, okay? Okay. First off, let's talk about the controversy of adding this deaf child. Before we get into the video, I'm still a little sick, so I'm sorry if my voice isn't great, but I knew I really needed to get this out because I've been gone for so long.
Last show.
That's it. That's what people are pissed about. No, I'm serious. That's what people are so angry at. Please keep in mind, this episode was not aimed to be about being deaf. It's about disabilities in general. More specifically, Fizzeroli's struggle with his disabilities. Disabilities are defined by Google as a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. Did you get that? Physical or mental condition. That mental bit will be brought up later in a separate point, so stick a pin in that one. I'm going to be going over a few points that people have against this episode and debunking this dog shit. One argument that people have is that Vivian just added this in as a cash grab, and I have a very important question for you. Just get nice and close here. So what? If it is a cash grab, then that doesn't make the representation any less valid. If someone makes a character in a show that's meant as representation, at least they know that there's value in that representation. They know it will make people happy to have that representation. Is it morally questionable to exploit that? Yes. But does that make the representation in of itself bad? No, and because you can't prove this point unless you have evidence that the creator said, hey, we should add in a disabled character to get more money, you're essentially saying that that character never should have existed, and I'm not even going to explain to you how screwed up that is. Argument 2 is that it's a child. Yes, very good. A child can be disabled. No. The real argument, and I'm using this really very loosely, is that it's a child in hell. Yes, it is. It's been established that hell-born inhabitants of hell are a thing, and guess what? That means they were born. If you didn't know, that means you will be born, become a child, become a preteen, become a teenager, become a young adult, become an adult, and finally become old until you die. Now, the aging process, to be fair, is a little bit hard to pinpoint specifically because of the different classes and the different aging spans, and some even being immortal, but you get the idea. You'll have to be born and go through a childhood in order to become an adult, at least. I cannot believe I actually felt like I had to explain that. And if your argument is that a child is being subjected to the cruelties of hell, what golden rock have you been living under exactly? Have you never had to deal with trauma in your entire life? I mean, if that's the case, way to go, you lucky bastard. But regardless, wake up, sweetie. Children are subjected to cruelty all the time. Does it suck? Yeah, but that's kinda just how it is. I'm sorry to break that to you. Argument 3 is that the disabilities weren't represented enough. Let's get this shit rolling. The whole episode was about not being ashamed of your disabilities. Where were you at? Going back to the definition of being disabled, you do not have to be born with a disability to have a disability. Some disabilities work like that, some are gained over time. That being said, Fizzeroli is disabled. The circus he worked at throughout his entire childhood got burned down by his best friends, and his arms and legs were burned off. And the argument that Fizz having robotic limbs as replacements doesn't change that. He is still disabled. The episode focuses on him and his experience in the present as a disabled person, in thinking everything that he has will disappear if he dares to stand up for himself. Fizzeroli thinks that if he shows he's disabled, Asmodeus, his partner, will leave him, and so will all of his fans and success and money along with him. Asmodeus knows Fizz's disabilities make him uncomfortable to put on display and respects that, but makes it known that he will always love Fizz for who he is, disabilities and all. And 2 minutes notice was all about him giving Mammon the actual finger and saying that he's proud of who he is. He rips off his sleeves to show his robotic arms and tears off the bottom half of his top to show the white on his body isn't clown makeup but actual scars. And at the end, he signs thank you to the deaf friend he interacted with before to let them know that it is okay to be disabled. What exactly are you on to say that it wasn't enough representation? And if you're trying to say the ASL should have been represented more, that's not what the episode is about. Yes, Fizz could have incorporated it into the act. Maybe translate some of the lyrics to, or communicate with the fan and other audience members who might know ASL. But adding on captions might make the song way too busy because it's already a whole circus act with Fizz jumping and soaring around the whole stage and room. And now we're going to just get into the general representation in media outside of Helluva Boss. General representation, for clarity's sake, is including but not limited to race, gender, sexuality, disability, culture, and more. People, more specifically people who aren't actually a part of the group being quote-unquote misrepresented, seem to think that these groups should be represented as perfect, which, no, they aren't perfect. They make mistakes, and some of them are even bad people. I know, you're all collectively gasping in shock. Good representation is not making the minorities out to be perfect protagonists. They can be antagonists, they can be mean, they can make mistakes. You know how I know that? Because they're human. Believe it or not, there have been gay serial killers. Does that make gay people as a whole bad? No. Does that make the person who did such horrible things not gay? No. Because they're human. Representing them as perfect is 1, kind of boring, and 2, just saying they're still not human but with some nice sugar being sprinkled onto it. I have friends who are gay, trans, disabled, and so on, and they actually hate people who think they're defending them by saying, this character is bad representation because they're not perfect and they made this mistake. Another thing, representation doesn't have to be stated directly to be representation. If anything, forcing it to be directly stated is still going with the narrative that being part of a minority isn't being human. I shouldn't have to say, I have this certain mental illness and allow me to explain how I know and all of my therapist knows on it. No, you're not entitled to that. If you recognize it, good for you. That's awesome. If not, it's not hurting anyone. Furthermore, not all representation is visible, and that's okay. There shouldn't have to be a shot of someone's medical records for that person to have a mental illness. A person shouldn't have to constantly show he has a boyfriend to be attracted to men. There are white Hispanics. One of my best friends is white Hispanic, and that doesn't make him not Hispanic just because his skin isn't slightly darker. And no, that's not the same thing as being 3.013% Hispanic or a part of a race and therefore being able to claim that you have the right to speak out about their racial problems and saying you have personal experience because your dad's uncle's left toenail was Hispanic. It's an appearance thing. Yes, maybe he just looks like a hot tan man. I mean, what? But that doesn't mean he isn't properly Hispanic or any less so. Alyssa from Illymation is not Jewish just because
Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I am Jewish. No you're not. You're pasty white with red hair. Listen, Buster, I may look like a hot and kissable version of Pennywise, but that doesn't mean I'm not Jewish. But you don't look Jewish. Your hair isn't curly, your eyes aren't dark, No, go on, say it. Your nose isn't big and hooked over. Correct, I don't look like your typical animated villain character. And I would argue no Jewish person looks like that. Only propaganda looks like that. Wait, so does that mean— I'll let you Google that one.
And side characters can be a part of representation too. A couple of lesbian moms in the background is not bad representation of being queer because they aren't front and center. Minorities aren't looking to be the spotlight of a story constantly, nor are they wanting to be portrayed as perfect. A simple nod to their existence can be enough sometimes. That's not to say having a main protagonist as a part of a minority is bad either. That's great, and I'll never say that shouldn't happen. However, it shouldn't be expected all the time. Minorities being represented through an antagonist, side character, background character is not any less worthy of being called representation. I just wanted to hop on and rant for a bit, so if you stayed this long, thank you so much for listening. That's all I have today, my little doodle borbs. I hope you had fun playing in my sketchbook, and I'll see you on the next page. Bye!